Hey guys, Sarah Ansboury here, and today we're talking about lead tape. Should you use lead tape? How do you use lead tape? What's it for? So this is my paddle right here. I kind of took off some of that so you can see. So I have lead tape from the bottom all the way around the top. So basically on top of it is just electrical tape. Now what happens a lot is people go buy the cheap electrical tape to go on top of it, and it actually, if you come from a hot climate or it's warm regularly, that tape is going to melt pretty quickly. So get that professional grade electrical tape. You can get them at most like hardwood stores or even Walmart or something, where it's actually usually 33 plus, so it's going to be a little stickier and it's going to stay on longer. So my paddle itself is even. It weighs 8.1 to start with. So when I'm adding that lead tape, I personally put it all the way around, and I actually, see if I can take this off. I have a little extra tip right here as well, just for a little bit more head heaviness in it. So what happens a lot is I see players and they have paddles that are too heavy for them, but it's not necessarily always the weight, it's the balance of the paddle. So if it's already head heavy and then you're adding a bunch of lead tape on top, maybe it's too heavy. So what you've got is different options when you're adding lead tape, and I always say start with less. Don't go too much too fast. I am pretty small. Most people think my paddle's too heavy, and it probably is for your average player. People make fun of me all the time. I really don't tell people how much it weighs anymore because I made that mistake once, and so it became a very crazy thing. So there's different ways to do it. So this one, it's almost all the way around. It starts here and goes in. Creates a little bit more on the head of it. Okay, so this one, no tape on it right now. So I'm going to show you a simple way to start. Okay, so one, lead tape. There's different kinds of lead tape. It's not just you order lead tape and it's there. This particular one is high density, and it's a half inch is what it is. So it actually lines up almost perfectly with the width of my paddle. Okay. So when you look it up, whether you get it on Amazon or any sporting goods store that carries lead tape, which is going to have something with golf usually, or tennis rackets, basically you're going to have thinner ones and then you're going to have thicker. So you're looking at like which speed it. So this one, again, I said it's high density. So usually every like 2 inches or so, it's maybe a quarter ounce or something. It's not as heavy as we think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take this little package off. Okay. I got my scissors. I'm all ready. So I'm going to start with a very simple way that usually I start people with, is I'm going to line up just the top of the paddle. Okay. So I'm measuring it first, and then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut it. Okay, and I really want to make sure it's sticking down. So I'm going to go over it probably multiple times. You can take your scissors and do the same thing and just really get it down there on your hand, on it. Okay, so that it's sticking right away. So you're kind of starting. This is a simple way to start. I just want to feel what a little weight is in the tip of the paddle. And again, this is balanced to start with, so it's not head heavy in the first place. So it's kind of steady there. Okay. From here, what I would look at is now let's kind of put. So think of this as a clock. Here's your 12 o'clock. Here's your 6 o'clock. So we're going to go 12, and then 3, and then 9. So it's still a lot in the head. Okay. So I'm actually going to start from this paddle. I'm going to actually go right about here, so at the edge of it. So it's still pretty bulky in the top of the paddle. So by putting some lead tape on the top of it, it's going to help a little bit with acceleration through the ball. So a little bit of paddle head speed is what we say. Okay. And then I'm going to even it out on the other side. I don't want it to be uneven. Okay. And then often this is where I'm going to start people. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go from here to here and then get the feel of it. Let's hit a few balls. What we want to be cautious of with too much weight, especially in the head, is it often can create tennis elbow issues and those types of things. One thing I see a lot with tennis players when we start is they want to put weight down here, okay, at the bottom. Well, what often happens when people do that is they start to cock their wrists more and start to snap back. So they end up leading with the butt of the paddle more than they end up with the tip of the paddle. So one of those important things we talk about is grip pressure. So we really want that kind of loose grip where your index finger and your thumb are supporting that paddle. What happens a lot when it's too bulky down here is people start squeezing down at the bottom and snapping it quite a bit. So you just want to make sure that when you are adding weight that you're not going too much too soon and you're kind of building up for it. And so let's say I like this, but I still don't want to go too heavy. So maybe I'm just going to go all the way around from about half the paddle up, okay, and then kind of go from there. And this is where, if you're newer to weight, getting a non-high density, a thinner weight, so you just start to feel a little bit like a couple ounces, not even a couple, it's going to be like less than a half an ounce when you get those smaller ones. So these aren't adding ounces and ounces to a paddle. So most often, I've got a lot of weight on my paddle, and usually that's too much for people. It's not helpful for them because it's harder to maneuver when you go too bulky with that lead tape. Okay, and it's hard sometimes to find the kind you want. So when I order mine online, I get like as many as I can because they sell out all the time. These are nice because they go right at the edge of the paddle. So we're making sure, remember, you can do anything you want legally to the outside of the paddle. You just can't put anything on the face of the paddle. So what we would do after this is we take some electrical tape, again, that heavy duty, and then, again, smooth it out so that the lead tape lasts longer. So if you don't put that electrical tape, this kind of tends to break down sometimes. So it just protects your edge guard and creates a little bit more consistency on there. Most handles are going to be pretty steady. I have seen people actually try to put weight in their handles. It's a lot of work for not a lot of results. So what you're really looking for is, remember, stability and balance. You want it to feel comfortable where you're moving from low to high. So if you naturally sit and the paddle drifts down, that paddle's too head heavy for you. You want that kind of, you want to think of like a sword almost. Think of your fencing. You want to be able to kind of stick it out and move towards people because this is your main tool. So mess with it. Try it out. Again, safety first. Make sure it's not too much. You can always add on. You can gradually try different things and see what works and what helps you play in your game. Just because I do it doesn't necessarily mean you should always do it. So it's always about what you want. I don't like to tape other people's paddles very often unless they're my students because I know what I got. The biggest mistake I see people do is they're like, well, my paddle's weighted this way, so let me weight your paddle. And they'll weight it the same way, but it's a totally different paddle, and it's shaped differently, and they're a different kind of player. So it's always about what works for you and trying it out. Less is usually more.